What you tolerate buries you. That quote might not be in any textbook, but it's written all over the lives of people who keep shrinking just to fit in. You've seen this story before. Maybe you're living it. That weight on your chest. It's not just exhaustion, it's emotional erosion. 1,000 quiet compromises stacked on top of each other, not all at once, but slowly, silently, like dripping water on stone. And now you feel it. That invisible pull, telling you something's off, but you can't explain it. This video isn't about some dramatic breakdown. It's about something far more dangerous, tolerating things that slowly erase you. And you've done it? We all have. But today, that ends. It starts with a laugh, a smile, a playful jab, but beneath that joke is a blade, subtle, sharp, and aimed straight at your self-worth. They say it with a smile, maybe a little nudge, as if it's no big deal, but it does something. It stings. Not because you're overly sensitive, but because there's truth buried in that laughter. Something meant to jab, to reduce, to put you in your place. And what do? You laugh too, because if you don't, you risk being labeled the one who can't take a joke. Suddenly you're defending your right not to be hurt. That's not humor. That's humiliation in disguise. And it's insidious because it often comes from people close to you, friends, family, co-workers, the people who are supposed to see you, not shrink you. These jokes become a pattern, a ritual, where you're always the punchline. And slowly, almost invisibly, you start adjusting, you speak less, you smile more even when it hurts. You preempt the jokes by mocking yourself first, thinking that maybe if you take control of the laughter, it won't sting as much. But it still does, because it's not about the joke, it's about the message underneath. You don't matter enough to be protected even in conversation. As Plato said, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. But mockery forgets kindness. It feeds off power imbalances. It masks cruelty with a laugh track. Reality doesn't slip all at once. It's chipped away. One denial, one. You're imagining things, one. You're too sensitive at a time, until your own memory becomes a question mark. Like, deep down, you know what just happened, what was said, what you felt, but somehow the other person makes you question all of it. They tell you that never happened, or you're making a big deal out of nothing. At first, you push back, but then it happens again and again, until eventually you're not even sure if you're remembering things right. That, right there, is the fog of doubt. It doesn't descend all at once. It creeps in slowly like smoke under a door. One moment you're confident in your reality, and the next, you're second-guessing your own mind. And the scariest part? It doesn't feel like manipulation at first. It feels like maybe you're just being difficult, or emotional, or misinformed. But the truth is, you're being taught to mistrust your instincts, to rewrite your own narrative. And that's not a mistake, that's a method. Because the moment someone can get you to doubt your version of reality, they gain control of the story. They become the narrator. And you start shrinking your voice, editing your emotions, apologizing for things you didn't even do. It's like being gaslit by someone else's confidence, and it leaves you spiraling. The real war isn't with them, it's with your own mind. So how do you start winning it again? There's a specific kind of pain in being dismissed. You offer your vulnerability like a gift, and they toss it aside like clutter on the table. And instead of feeling heard, you get hit with a shrug, or worse, a sigh, an eye roll, or that awful line, you're overreacting. It's like tossing your heart on the table, and they just push it aside like it's an inconvenience. That's what emotional invalidation feels like. It's not loud, it doesn't come with sirens, but it cuts deep. It makes you feel like your feelings are too much, like your pain is a burden. And over time, you start to believe that maybe silence is safer, that maybe you should stop speaking altogether. But where does that lead? When you stop expressing how you feel just to keep the peace, you don't find peace, you find pressure. Pressure that builds in your chest, knots in your stomach, steals your voice in rooms where you deserve to be heard. And the worst part? You start invalidating yourself. You hear their voice in your head saying, "It's not a big deal," and suddenly you're dismissing your own pain before anyone else even gets the chance. Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And this is exactly what that looks like. Letting someone convince you that your emotions are an overreaction until you no longer trust your emotional compass. But how long can you keep living like that before the silence starts to rot? At what point does silence stop being peaceful and start being poisonous? Not all punishment's allowed. Sometimes it arrives without a word, just distance, cold eyes, an unanswered text, silence that echoes louder than any scream, that eerie stillness where texts go unanswered, calls get ignored, and their presence feels colder than their absence ever could. That's not just space. That's not cooling off. That's the silent treatment. And it's one of the most calculated forms of control. Because it doesn't scream, it starves, it withholds warmth, communication and connection, all while keeping their hands clean. You're left chasing answers, replaying moments in your head, wondering what you did wrong, even when deep down you know you didn't deserve it. What makes it so painful is that it mimics abandonment, but it happens in real time. They're there, but not really. They walk past you, avoid eye contact, let the air grow thick with unspoken punishment. And you feel it. The need to fix it, to make it stop. So you shrink, you apologize, you try to smooth things over just to hear them speak again. But here's the thing, when someone uses silence to punish you, they're not trying to resolve anything, they're trying to control the terms of your connection. And Carl Jung said it best, where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking. The silent treatment isn't love, it's power dressed up as distance. And slowly, it rewires you. You start anticipating tension before it arrives. You walk on eggshells, constantly adjusting your tone, your timing, your truth, just to avoid triggering another shutdown. You become more focused on keeping the peace than on being at peace. That's the real cost. Not just the silence, but the fact that you start disappearing inside of it. So then what? How do you speak up in the face of silence without being met with more of it? Maybe the better question is, why did you ever believe you needed their permission to speak? Being the good one comes with invisible strings. You're the giver, the fixer, the one who always stays calm. But behind the praise is a person slowly disappearing. The one who puts others first. The one who gives and never asks for anything in return. People call it noble, selfless. They admire how strong you are, how patient, how generous. But they never ask what it's costing you. Because behind every compliment is an unspoken expectation that you'll keep sacrificing, that you'll keep showing up even when it hurts, that you'll keep swallowing your needs, your time, your energy, just to make sure everyone else is okay. And eventually, you forget how to ask if you're okay. At first, it feels good. Giving feels like love, like purpose, like if you give enough, you'll finally be enough. But then the emptiness creeps in. You say yes when your body's screaming no. You stay quiet when your boundaries are being crossed. And you wonder, why does love feel so heavy? Why does helping everyone else leave you feeling so alone? Because the truth is, what you're calling love might actually be self-abandonment. Carl Jung once wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that's the tragedy of this role. You don't get that privilege. You're too busy being who others need you to be. And the longer you wear that mask, the harder it becomes to take off. You fear being seen as selfish. You fear the guilt that comes with saying no. You fear the discomfort that comes with choosing yourself. You start calling exhaustion being strong. So instead, you overextend. You over-apologize. You overfunction in relationships that barely meet you halfway. And at some point, the question hits you like a brick. If I stopped showing up for everyone else, would anyone show up for me? So what happens when you finally realize that love shouldn't mean disappearing? That maybe being the saint is the very thing keeping you from your own wholeness? Sometimes the worst kind of loneliness is the one that lives inside connection. When you're surrounded by people, yet feel like you've made yourself smaller just to be tolerated. Not because the battle is over, but because you've convinced yourself it's not worth it anymore. You've lowered the bar so many times just to keep someone around that now you don't even remember what your standards were to begin with. You tell yourself, at least they haven't left. As if being half seen, half heard, half loved is better than being alone. And that's how it starts, the slow erosion of your dignity in exchange for crumbs of connection. You stop asking for respect, you stop expressing your truth, you endure silence, sarcasm, distance, neglect, and you call it loyalty. But how did it get here? When did love become something you had to earn with suffering? When did your presence become negotiable, your needs optional, your boundaries a nuisance? It didn't happen in one moment. It happened over time. 100 little choices, 1,000 swallowed words. The way you rationalized red flags because you were afraid of being seen as too much. Because being too much could mean being left. And being left, that's the deepest fear, isn't it? That you'll be alone with all that you feel and no one will be there to catch you. But, as Carl Jung said, loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. And what's more lonely than sitting next to someone who has no idea who you are? And here's the quiet heartbreak of it all. You start believing that maybe you don't deserve better. That maybe this is as good as it gets. That maybe you're too damaged, too complicated, too needy. So you stay, you settle, you soften your voice, your opinions, your very presence, just to keep the peace. And every day, you become less of yourself and more of what they can tolerate. But who are you really connecting with then? Them, or just a version of you that's been trimmed down to fit into someone else's comfort zone? So what would happen if you stopped negotiating your worth? What if you chose solitude over submission, silence over self-betrayal? What if being alone with your truth was the first step to finally coming home to yourself? Maybe this video hurt. Maybe it felt too real, but that's not a bad thing. Pain is a signal. It means you're waking up. And once you see these behaviors for what they are, you can't unsee them. But here's the part that most people miss. It's not just about others, it's also about you. You might have picked up some of these habits. You might be repeating what was done to you. That doesn't make you bad, that makes you human. What matters is what you do next. Because once you name the pattern, you can break it. You can walk away. You can set boundaries. You can stop playing small in your own story. No, it's not easy. You will lose things, people, habits, illusions, but what you gain is worth everything. If this video struck something inside you, drop this line in the comments. What I allow is what I become. Not for me, for you. As a reminder that you're not swallowing any more poison, that you're choosing truth, even when it's hard. Turn off this video, but don't turn off what just lit up inside you. From now on, walk taller, talk clearer, tolerate less. Because once you wake up, you don't go back to sleep.